Sometimes you just gotta let shit happen. You feel me? And it's crazy because we live in a world where we were taught the opposite of that. A lot of people growing up are taught they have to do something. If a quote unquote problem arises or if a certain situation happens and it's not to their liking or this or that, a lot of people think they have to be the ones to do something about it. And what I want to explain to you today is not something that is about being passive or just never taking action, but something more about letting things be as they are and accepting things as they are, right? Whether that be situations, whether that be people, whether that be anything. Just first accepting things as they are before you go and attempt to make a change, right? Because here's the thing. People will tell you who they are by their actions, by the actual words they say, how they treat you, how they interact with you, if they interact with you. You will know. And so you don't have to go chasing after a person or people who don't want any of your energy. That's like, hello. In the same way, people will show you when they want to be around you. People who want to be in your energy, people who want to interact with you, they're going to show you that. And they will also show you, if you listen and if you pay attention enough, they will show you how they want to interact with you. So, for me, I don't try to change anyone. I let them show me who they are and I accept it. Whether I accept them in my life or not, that's another thing. But accept people as they are and how they present themselves to you. And that when I say how they present themselves to you, I mean how they are being, not necessarily if they are presenting themselves in a lie or a falsification. Obviously, some of us are very talented at seeing through facades and seeing through lies and how people are. So we take all this into consideration subconsciously without needing to constantly and consciously process these things. But what I'm saying is, when you come at life from a space of awareness, you are in a space of acceptance. Me being present, me being here, I'm okay with everything. If my mind starts to churn, I'm okay with it. If this happens or that happens or blah, 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 I'm okay with it. And that is essentially what it means to be here and present and be now. Because there is a level of acceptance that needs to happen to access that bliss that is in stillness and peace and tranquility that is only found here in the present moment. So yes, those situations, those problems you think you have, those things that arise in your mind that worry you, accept them. Accept that you feel some type of way with them. Accept that maybe it exists. And accept them as they are before you try to even start to think about trying to do anything about it. And I know for a lot of you, that need to try and do something in itself is a natural thing. Accept that too. And it's funny, people will think that acceptance, if you just accept everything as it is, it'll never change, blah, blah. That's not how reality works either. I think it's only by acceptance that we are able to change things from an accurate space. Otherwise, we are merely looking at an abstraction of life, of reality, an idea that we have, rather than looking at the thing as it is and accepting it as it is, some people try to change something, but they're looking at it how they see it in their mind, not how it is in reality. So I encourage you, step into that space of awareness and acceptance, and you will be glorified. You will be embracing inherently, naturally, the present moment. And there's inherent beauty in that. Because when you do this, when you accept everything, you realize where you are, who you are, what you are, and how things are without the need to try and explain them or change them. You just, me by witnessing, being here, present, aware. I know these things. I just know them. I know, the camera in front of me. I know the words that are coming out of my mouth. I know the walls. And this isn't something about an intellectual level of knowing or understanding, because it's not something that is bound by words. It's a knowing on an experiential level. So when I say that, in acceptance, you can change things, because the truth is things are always changing, and perception, reality changes reality. Like you just being aware and perceiving something has an effect on reality just by you observing it. So there is no escaping from change, because the world is movement. Everything is changing. Everything is moving. So even when you think, being passive or not doing anything, you are always affecting the world around you just by existing. And that's okay. That's beautiful. That is inherently how reality is. And so when you sit in this mindset of accepting your own nature, accepting how you are, because let's face it, if something is not good, you are going to change it if it's supposed to be. All right, that is something that's just going to naturally happen. It's going to naturally flow. What I'm specifically talking about is not worrying about changing things that are kind of out of your control, that you have no say over. Things that you can't enforce your physical abilities onto. For example, other people. I can't control how other people perceive me. I can't choose what you think of me. I can only be myself. And so it's funny too, though, because by being ourselves in our most natural and authentic state, without trying to be anything, just being, we automatically, I feel, attracts obviously we attract more like-minded people, more people who are in that same frequency, in our same energy. But as well, people are more likely to like us in general, because authenticity is hard to dislike. Because when I see authenticity, even if I don't like it, I have to accept it. You can't not accept it, because that's just truth. And so it's funny, it's funny, just from a state and a place of acceptance, everything makes sense. There is no worry. There's no worry. And in the logical mind that is not abiding in acceptance will try to poke holes in this state of being. It will. But even so, acceptance comes before that. Acceptance in your awareness and your consciousness can accept that doubting, that mind that wants to poke holes in this concept, not even a concept, this existence, this reality. It wants to poke holes in it. But even through that awareness of it, dissolves it. And you just see through it. You realize it's not real. Some people call this the state of Zen. Some people call this the flow state, Christ consciousness. You can call it whatever you want. But the truth is, it's always here for us to access. Always. So whenever you're stressed, you're worried, you don't know what to do, settle yourself into acceptance. And it's not a fight. Acceptance is not a fight. It's the opposite. I often like to say letting go, right? But I think, even when I say letting go, by the nature of the human language, it's an action. And in our minds, when we hear an action, it makes us think that there is a certain level of force to be put towards that. So that's why I like acceptance. It's not an action, really. It could be, but it doesn't inherently have to be. Acceptance just is. So that's why I like to word it this way. Instead of letting go, instead of thinking of it as an action or something that you have to do, acceptance just is. It just is. Just like consciousness. Consciousness just is. There's no effort or force that is needed to be put up on it. And in the same way, I notice myself, I don't need to get in my way in terms of thinking I have to be like this or that or this or that. My natural actions, one, speak for themselves, but my natural actions are inherently the course of least resistance. So let's say I have this goal in mind. The path quickest to that goal is often the path of least resistance. So you don't have to fight your way to get your goals. Not in a energetic level, not in a mental level. You may call it fighting because yes, there's action being taken, but it's not in the way that you think. And if you've ever played sports, you would understand this concept, right? Say you play basketball. The goal of basketball, you want to win the game. You want to perform well, ideally. But let's say you throw out all those ideas and you just play. You just play. That's often when you perform the best because there's no inhibitions. There's no thoughts of, I need to be like this. There's no control. It's just spontaneous action. It just is. It just is. And it's funny, the type of things that can happen when you're in that space. Other people could look at some of the things that I've done from that space and say it's magic or the universe was conspiring for me or how did you do that? How did that? That doesn't make any sense. Because I've been in those situations many times. And the truth is, there's no resistance. So everything just happens the way it should. And it's funny. I think it's really funny for some reason. Like, I don't know why I think it's funny, but it's almost like this cosmic joke of how people can just get in their own way. How the human mind is always searching, always looking for this thing or that thing, looking for an answer. When the question and the answer arise as one, it is self-completing. It's a circle. It's the same thing as the chicken and the egg. They arise simultaneously. Just as the question and the answer arise simultaneously as to what you're looking for on this earth, what you think you're supposed to be, this, that, blah, 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 whatever you may think it is. They arise simultaneously because even in asking that question, it is already resolved by it being asked. Just in the same way as when you ask the question, what came first, the chicken or the egg? It in itself is already resolved. It's already resolved. Without needing any answer. And I love those type of questions. Because as a kid, I never really understood what the point of those questions were. It's the same thing like if a tree falls over in the forest and no one is there to hear it, doesn't make a sound. That itself is a self-answered question. It's an illusion. People think it's a question. It's not really a question. And I love that. And I almost don't even want to explain it how, because I feel like that takes the fun away, you know? And so when I look at these Eastern teachings, when I look at Zen, Buddhism, all these things, I realize why all of this exists, why the whole doctrine exists. Because and I understand it because it's inherently a self-answering question. And for me to explain to you this whole path and all these things in a very analytical and consent and this is how things are, blah blah blah, it almost like ruins the fun of it. Just in the same way of me explaining the answer to those questions, and I understand why. I see why the things are the way they are. More than just understanding life and Eastern spirituality, I understand why it is all put together the way it is. I understand why certain teachings are written in certain ways. Certain books are written in certain ways. And at a certain point, I think in my learning, we'll call it learning. I don't think that's a good word for it, but we'll call it learning. I think I too would have been upset, as in, why would someone not explain it directly, the answer to these questions? Why would not someone not tell me the answer to if a tree falls down in the forest, does it make a sound? Why would I not get an answer to that? Why would I not get an answer directly as to what enlightenment is? In verbal form. And I realize also then that everything plays out, everything is already known experientially, one. But two, at a certain level, you understand everything happens the way it should. Everything is as it is and as it should be. And it's strange. It's strange. The human mind cannot wrap itself around that. It can't. Because the human mind is before God, before conscious, or it's God is before that. Consciousness is before the human mind. Understanding, knowing is before the human mind. It's just because we've been going to school and they always tell us to use our mind, to use thinking, to use these things, that people think that is the only form of intelligence. And they don't think that knowing and consciousness is intelligence. Just, yeah. It is knowing, it is upon itself. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about, and it just sounds like I'm talking in a circle or it doesn't make sense, then I encourage you, one, to come back to this video, but in a state of acceptance, and you will understand this video not from a mind and a thinking perspective, but from a knowing perspective. And then two, maybe things will shift, be seen or perceived in a different way, or at the very least, not be perceived through the filter of the mind. So I would like to leave you with that, and have a wonderful day.